Hello and welcome to another Pioneer video. Today I'm gonna take you to Chocobo City, where the elves are green and the puns are witty. Today we're gonna try and combo off with Bolas' Citadel, which is something I've been meaning to do for a while now, a card I always keep going back to since it's so much fun to play with. The 6 mana artifacts, as we can look at the top card of our library at any time, and both play lands as well as cast spells off the top of our library. If we cast a spell this way, we'll have to pay life equal to its mana value, as opposed to paying mana for it. So very powerful effect, but it is an interesting build around since we don't have infinite life to work with. So in this deck we're trying to make up for the life loss from Citadel with the life gain from Dread Presence, which says whenever a swamp we control enters, we can either draw a card and lose a life, or deal 2 damage to any target and gain 2 life. This deck is black-green, but we can turn all our lands into swamps if we have access to Urborg in our mana base, or if we control Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which not only lets us play an additional land each turn, but also says lands we control have every basic land type, so that also includes swamp. So now if we play a card like Fabled Passage, it enters, we trigger Dread Presence, we can deal 2 damage, then we can sacrifice it, get another land, could be a forest, and it will still trigger Dread Presence, dealing another 2 damage. So that's how we can eventually close out the game as well, by just targeting our opponent over and over again. And Dread Presence also pairs well with these extra land drop effects like Dryad provides, as we can now play multiple swamps in the same turn. Azusa lets us play up to 2 additional lands each turn, and there's a new I Still Explore, which not only lets us play an extra land each turn, but also lets us play a land out of the graveyard if we'd like, and with Landfall also mills a card, which is a way of putting lands in the graveyard in the first place. And I Still Explore, of course, very good with Fabled Passage, as a fetch land we can sacrifice over and over again, triggering a landfall in the process. Also very synergistic with the Gidrock monster, which is our final black card in the deck. A 5 mana 6/6 with Death Touch also lets us play an additional land each turn. At the beginning of our upkeep, we have to sacrifice the monster unless we sacrifice a land, but whenever 1 or more lands are put into our graveyard from anywhere, we also get to draw a card. So sacking a land to Gidrock monster in our upkeep draws a card, sacking a fetch land will draw a card, and milling a land with I Still Explore with a Gidrock in play will also draw a card. So these are the main card draw engines in the deck, so ideally we have at least one of those in our opening hand. And then tying everything together, we also have the Traveling Chocobo, which lets us play lands off the top, birds off the top, and also essentially doubles all our landfall triggers. So now Explorer will mill 2, and more importantly, Dread Presence also triggers twice with a Chocobo in play, and the more Chocobos and the more Dread Presences on the battlefield, the better, so those also stack very nicely. Then we also have Lotus Cobra with Landfall generating a mana, so that's how we can potentially generate a huge mana advantage, so we can still cast spells we have stuck in hand, despite playing most of our spells off the top with Bolas' Citadel. And to make sure our deck is fast enough to be somewhat competitive, we also have various elves to be able to play some of our 3 and 4 mana cards ahead of schedule, which will then bridge the gap towards Bolas' Citadel. And then the mana base is interesting because we do still need some basics to fetch up with Fabled Passage. We do want as many swamps as we can handle, but we also need some green sources early. So I'm going with 4 forests, 6 swamps, Boseiju can also be channeled, and that occasionally will come in handy. Overgrown Tomb, of course, is great, since it's also a swamp for Dread Presence, and then Wastewood Verge still makes green early, but later will also produce black mana to help cast Bolas' Citadel, since it is triple black at the end of the day. So yeah, this is the deck. It's not going to be particularly competitive, just going to be playing it in the play queue as opposed to the ranked ladder, but my goal is just to have some fun with Bolas' Citadel, so hopefully this deck will deliver. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a decent hand. Turn 1 Elves. Turn 2 maybe Azusa. And then we just need to hit a few more land drops for Citadel. Opponent on an Esper Oculus deck, so that can be a problem later. For now, I guess Dryad has enough upside here, turning every land into a swamp for Dread Presence. And 1 additional land drops is plenty. So yeah, just hoping to draw land. Opponent recommissions Oculus already. So yeah, that's a lot of pressure on turn 2. They draw the land, so that's now also a swamp. And I'll just draw, since we need 1 more mana source to play Citadel. We found it. Now I could deal 2 to the face down card in case it's another Oculus. It was a stubborn denial. Okay. Stitcher Supplier will mill. Well, if they have another stubborn denial in hand, they can counter the Citadel, which would be unfortunate. They're maybe looking to reanimate something else. Nothing too exciting in the graveyard. And Oculus is not even attacking. I think I still gotta try Citadel here. That resolves, awesome. Play Explorer. Into Lotus Cobra. Into a land. So we're gonna mill the land with Explorer, and then I can draw the next card with Dread Presence. Alright, we're gonna draw a Gitrog monster. Now Cobra makes green. Can play another Explorer. We fall to 10. How low can we go before we start gaining life with a Dread Presence? Now Fabled Passage is kind of exciting. Every land is a swamp thanks to my double Dried here. So this can deal 2. Let's deal with the face down card again. Mill Azusa. Mill Citadel, that's fine. Chocobo on top. I would like to cast. Paying 3 life. Lotus Cobra still worth 2 life. And then I would like to play Azusa from hand before I play Fabled Passage. And yeah, we're off to the races here. Get a million triggers. Time to deal damage, and I could start going upstairs now. Can just ignore the Oculus. With double Explorer, I will be milling a lot, but that just means more lands I can replay out of the graveyard. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. What turn was this? Turn 4. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have turn 1 Elvish Mystic, turn 2 Cobra. Just need to hit some more lanes for Dread Presence. Opponent green-white with their own elves, so likely an angel deck. Alright, Citadel is exciting. Although I just need the lanes now to be able to cast all our spells. Alright, Skyclave, their only real interaction, takes care of the Cobra. And a Fabled Passage. Alright, so how about we play Dryad, then play Fabled Passage, which makes mana with Dryad in play. So then I can maybe wait to sack Fabled Passage to get an extra Dread Presence trigger. Night of Autumn can actually blow up the Dryad now, since it's an enchantment. So maybe this isn't Angels, but rather just a green-white company deck with what appears to be a lot of disruption. I think I keep more swamps in the deck, even though I do eventually need triple black for Citadel. Now Chocobo can maybe play a land off the top. Another Chocobo instead. Alright, I mean, we're not taking too much damage so far, so there's still hope. Take 4. Now Kellen's fine. And Thalia, that's gonna tax my Citadel. Still no land on top. I guess we'll play the Dread Presence, since that can at least block their stuff. They can still exile it with another Skyclave. Alright, this is a big attack, so they probably have Igancho in hand. Still gonna block, and then maybe block the Skyclave Apparition or Kellen. Well, they already got their value of Kellen, I suppose. Alright, Bodyguard instead. So it's not looking great. Finally see a land on top. So I can go Dread Presence, play Overgrown Tomb, deal 2. Probably worth it to play it untapped. And get back my Dread Presence. And get back a 2/2. Double triggers thanks to the Chocobo. And now we're in a position where we can maybe cast Citadel. A Wastewood Verge is not going to trigger Dread Presence since we lost our Dryad. Alright, so maybe the board is stable here. So we get to untap, play land, play Citadel. Zeus off the top. Fabled Passage can get 2 swamps. Do I want to play Boseiju first? Not really. We'll shuffle. Just 1 swamps at this point. So that's 8 damage we can deal. I can just go upstairs. It's probably fine. Do have to watch out for Shafat Dunes bumping their team, but we might be able to just close out the game right now. In fact, I can activate Citadel and deal 10 damage to my opponent that way. But let's keep going since we're having fun. Can maybe still cast a Chocobo from hand as well. Opponent's at 1, play Explorer, play another Fabled Passage, and that'll get a swamp here. And that will be game. Sweet. So yeah, it was looking a little sketchy at some point, but eventually Bolas' Citadel came through. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is promising, just needs a Curve Topper, whether it's a Dread Presence or a Bolas' Citadel. Opponent on red with Epicure, so maybe the red-white Convoke deck with a way to make Goblin tokens. Draw another Ladder Elves, so now I like Cobra, Land, play Elves, I think, over Chocobo. And then I can cast Explorer before playing my land, so I improve the odds of milling some lands to keep going off with the Explorer. Second Epicure, opponent is indeed red-white, and the Warden is also quite good here. Well, at least they didn't have the best possible start, where they can already convoke a creature on turn 2. So start with Explorer. Play a land, mill a card, make a mana. And we can do so again. Sadly mill the Citadel this time. Now we mill the land. Play Chocobo. And yeah, we're top decking, but I've got the mana to cast whatever I draw. And then especially Dread Presence with all these swamps can be very nice. Just gotta withstand the incoming assault. Warden picks up more counters. Just wanna try and keep our life total as high as possible, so once we do draw Citadel, I still have enough life total to work with. Alright, there's a Knight Errant, so that'll find more creatures. Another Knight Errant and a Loxodon. Alright, Gidrog on top. I wouldn't be able to play, but I wouldn't mind drawing it, so then I don't think I play a land, otherwise I would mill with the Explorer. So then I'm just going to stay put. Yeah, I mean, I could hope for Citadel, but Gidrog with Explorer is also quite good, because if I mill a land, I get to draw. But it's possible I'm going to be a turn too slow, even with a Gidrog coming down next turn. And Warden flies. Opponent's probably convoking here. Goes for another Knight Errant. Finding 2 more creatures. Ooh, Bushwhacker, that can give the team haste. Could go for it right now. They could wait. Alright, opponent convoking a Loxodon for now. So next turn I'm pretty sure I'm dead, so yeah, I don't think I'll be able to do much else. So I can play Gidrog, play a land, milling twice, making 2 mana. Well, we milled a Fabled Passage, that's excellent with a Gidrog monster. So playing this will mill again, since I don't necessarily want to draw the Overgrown Tomb, or play it with a Chocobo. Okay. So now what? Lotus Cobra on top. If I fetch Fabled Passage, I'll draw it. I guess that's still the play for now. Can play another Cobra. Pretty much need to find a Citadel and be able to draw into it, which is going to be quite tricky. So I'm going to mill the top 2. Alright, we draw the Citadel, since we milled a land with Gidrog monster in play, so I can actually still cast it here. That's awesome. So go for Citadel, don't need to play Cobra just yet. Play Dryad. So now it's just a matter of finding a Dread Presence before it's too late. Should probably just fetch with Fabled Passage. Another Fabled Passage on top. I guess I'll play the Cobra, since I'll make up for the mana anyways. Alright, there's a Dread Presence. So, if I go full control and fetch with Fabled Passage, I should be able to draw into it with the Gidrog monster. And wow, our opponent scoops it up here. Yeah, this turn was gonna take a second, there's a lot of triggers happening. But yeah, we should be able to draw into the Dread Presence, and then once we have Dread Presence in play, every land is a swamp. With the Chocobo, every land deals 4 damage at the very least, and then it's just a matter of getting the critical mass of more Chocobos, more Dread Presences, and then I can deal all the damage to my opponent directly, which again feeds into the Bolas' Citadel. Once I get them to 10, I can probably activate this to get the game over with. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand has potential, just really needs an extra land or 2. I'll still try it. Might have to start with Fabled Passage, even though it's good with Lotus Cobra. Alright, now I can maybe wait. Opponent also black-green, but looks like elves. So don't expect a ton of removal. But they can be very fast out of the gates, especially with an Archdruid. So the goal is to eventually use Dread Presence to take out the Archdruid. For now, what's my optimal sequencing? Can play a fetch line, make a mana, play Chocobo, and then fetch, but it enters tapped. So I guess I can make that play and just not sacrifice a Fabled Passage yet. As opposed to just playing the Dread Presence, which is also an option. But I think this will work out a little bit better. Because yeah, I can make 2 mana here, but that's it. And Dryad coming up would be a fine draw. Now Deathrite. And Llanowar Elves. And a Visionary. So now they can still activate Archdruids, making 7 mana for a Warmaster at the very least. They have a Realm Walker instead, so they can play more Elves off the top. Another Llanowar Elves. And an Elite. Well, opponent's empty-handed, but yeah, definitely need to deal with Archdruid or else we're dead. Opponent does not even attack. So yeah, let's take our turn. Elvish Mystic on top, I can shuffle away. For now I can get a Forest, since we're not triggering Dread Presence. Make some mana. Play Dread Presence. Play a land. So now I get 4 damage to here, to here. Make 2 mana. And we know Cobra's coming up. I think I go for Chocobo. That way if there's a land on top, we'll get triple the Dread Presence trigger. Ooh, Shaman of the Pack. That's a good top deck. Another one of those and we're dead. Deathrite can also exile my fetch lands, which is annoying if we draw I Still Explore. Urborg on top is awesome. Alright, so play another Dread Presence first. Play Urborg, get a million triggers. I think I start by mowing down their creatures. And the opponent concedes, understandably. So with double Chocobo and double Dread Presence, that's 8 triggers total. Then I could still, with a double landfall from Cobra, play Dryads, which then lets me play another land off the top, again triggering Dread Presence. So actually if I go face, I can probably just close out the game here, I'm pretty sure. And then we're also gaining life, so we're safe from another top deck Shaman. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Opponent with Yorion as companion. Could be control or maybe some sort of enchantment flicker deck. This hand's not gonna cut it without green. This we can try. Turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Turn 2 could try the Chocobo. Yeah, I mean, Explore without a fetch lane's not super exciting. I will still try and keep the Citadel. So blue-black could just be a pure control deck, which doesn't bode incredibly well for any of my creatures staying in play for long. Opponent's gonna make the Chocobo disappear. Well, at least that's a counterspell that could have countered my Bolas Citadel as well. Although I doubt we're gonna get to 6 mana to cast it before something else happens to it. So I do want to start deploying some more black sources. And yeah, technically next turn I could already cast it. Opponent's gonna pass with 4 mana up. What are the odds that this resolves? Maybe they just have a bunch of creature removal. Alright, opponent's drawing, so they may not have an answer yet. Omen also synergistic with Yorion. That resolves. Can play Gidrog, even though it plays into a sweeper. That's fine. Opponent's gonna now Vanishing Verse Citadel. Alright, so if they can follow that up with a sweeper and I lose everything, I'll be sad. I think I still play Boseiju. And hang on to the elves. Teferi could minus on the Gidrag, but then they lose it. So they're gonna plus. Do I get to untap with it? I do. Sack a forest. Alright, so there's not much going on here. Just gonna attack Teferi with everyone in case they do have something to deal with the Gidrag. They do not. Still not gonna play the Dryads. Opponent flashes in another Omen, so now with Yorion they get to draw 2 more cards. Would love to find another Citadel. Fetch lands, maybe Dread Presence, with Dryad turning every land into a swamp. Alright, opponent taps out for Yorion. Gidrag monster can still attack. But now they'll probably have all the answers they need in hand. So this is my 1-turn window to make something happen. They kept on top. And they kept on top again. Swamp. Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage is a redraw. Finds Lotus Cobra. Alright, so not quite what we were hoping for. Might want to keep the swamp in hand at this point. Shark Typhoon Hardcast, was not expecting that one. Alright, so I get another turn where I maybe get to do whatever I want. A land Dread Presence. Okay, so what's my sequencing now? A Lotus Cobra, Dread Presence, play a land. I've got 2 land drops with a Gidrag monster, so yeah, let's start with Lotus Cobra. Into Dread Presence. Could also maybe attack first, and maybe I can just win the game with enough damage. May as well. Opponent is jumping, so they likely have a sweeper, or they just want to preserve their life total. So then I'm going to be drawing with Dread Presence initially. Find a Chocobo, that would be nice to get down. So, play Overgrown Tomb. And draw a card. Find a backup Gidrag. So, yeah, I guess if I play Dryads, that's it, since I don't have an extra land drop. If I play Chocobo, I don't have a extra land drop, even if there's one on top that I get to play. So, should I even bother casting anything else? Feels like a sweeper's imminent. Oath of Kaya deals with a Dread Presence. Alright, I get to untap. Once more. Now I still Explorer, we do have a Fabled Passage, so that's pretty sweet. Start there. Play Fabled Passage. Mill a card, make a mana. Now the question is, do I want to play a Traveling Chocobo before I keep activating? I will let the Cobra trigger twice. I think I wait. Since if I draw Dread Presence, I might need the mana elsewhere. Another Explorer. Okay, a replay Fabled Passage once again, I think. Still no need to go for a Chocobo, because it doesn't trigger Gidrock twice. Although milling lands is useful, and we found the Dread Presence. Okay. Now I could be convinced to play the Chocobo into the Dread Presence. Dread Presence on top. Can maybe draw into. Play Swamp. So first we'll draw, then we can mill. So draw, mill, mill, draw. Which draws again with a Gidrock monster. Still have a Fabled Passage that can get a Swamp at instant speed, although we're starting to run low on swamps in the deck. Okay, so if I play Dryads, I can play one more land off the top. Or better yet, use Fabled Passage. Because Fabled Passage coming back also counts as a swamp. So only one land left, actually. So time to deal some damage. Can maybe go after the Shark, although it's possible they can make more at instant speed. So I'll just go face. Citadel on top. I doubt I'll be able to cast it, even with the mana from Cobra. So, Fabled Passage, still probably the play. So I get a bunch of triggers. I can first draw with Dread Presence, draw the Citadel, and wow, opponent scoops it up. So yeah, I think we're actually going to be able to cast Citadel after all, because I still had those 2 draw triggers from Dread Presence, 2 mana floating. Fabled Passage makes 2 mana with Cobra. Once I sacrifice it and get a land, that's 2 more. So then we can definitely cast Citadel, and then assuming there's enough cards left in library, find a few more lands to go off with Dread Presence and Chocobo. So yeah, for opponent was indeed on empty, which is a little strange given the circumstances. We could have gone off and won the game right now. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is decent, just missing maybe a fetch lane to go with the Explorer. Citadel would be a nice curve topper as well. But Urborg means that even if Dryad dies, all our lands will trigger Dread Presence. Opponent a red-white with a Scavenger, so an Aura deck. Alright. Play Lotus Cobra. Hope they don't shelter by Ghosts me. Plots Demonic Ruckus. ×2. Alright. So can expect them to have Light Paws at some point as well. For now, I guess Explorer. Can maybe hang on to Boseiju to blow up Aura at some point. And then play this tapped. Hope to mill more lanes with the Explorer. But next turn I can play Dread Presence, and then Boseiju at the very least will count as a swamp with Urborg, so can draw or deal 2 damage. Now Challenger. a second scavenger, so now they can get a bunch of +1 counters from those copies of Demonic Ruckus. Alright, so this is gonna hurt. Opponent saves the second Ruckus for now. Draw an Elf. So, can't take out Challenger, but I can take out a Scavenger. Could also draw. So let's mill. Hoping to mill a land. I think I should deal 2 to a Scavenger here. Mitigate some of the damage we're taking. Did mill a land, so that's nice. A Lotus Cobra can make additional mana. So now if I play Overgrown Tomb untapped, I can still play the Dryads and the Elves. Mill Dread Presence. Alright, so we're in decent shape here. Especially if we draw more lands, interestingly enough. Can cast a Bolas Citadel, and we should have some life to play with. Alright, there's a Sheltered by Ghosts. It was bound to happen. Probably gets rid of Dread Presence. Another Ruckus. And a Feather of Flight, so it's a lot of unblockable damage. With lifelink. And do another Explorer. Yeah, that's not going to be good enough here, unfortunately. Alright, GG's. Couldn't quite get there. That's where having spot removal would certainly help. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand would have been awesome if we had green mana to cast our spells. As is, I don't think I can keep. This is better. Do I keep both copies of Elvish Mystic? Dryad's not really doing much for me, so maybe I can get rid of that one. Already have Urborg anyway. And at least the Gitrog monster gives us something to build towards to draw more cards. Opponent a red-green. Alright, Adventures. Been a while since we've seen that archetype in action. But it used to be all the rage in Standard. Chocobo's interesting too. I think I still go for a Lotus Cobra. Make green, play Elvish Mystic. And then next turn I can already Gitrog monster. So now the Beast 5/5. And draw Llanowar Elves. Yeah, I think I still Gitrog. If I Chocobo play a land, I get 2 landfall triggers, but that's still not enough to do much else. And a 6/6 lines up reasonably well here. Can expect Brazen Borrower to maybe bounce the monster. If they attack, they could have a Bone Crusher to finish off monster with 2 damage. So I'll probably take it. Alright, no attacks, even better. And draw a Llanowar Elves and Dread Presence. So Dread Presence doesn't have a land to go with it at the moment, so play Chocobo, hope that there's a land on top. And then we can go off. Perfect, and it's even a Fabled Passage, which also synergizes with the Gitrog monster. So I can play Dread Presence, tapping the Elves. Opponent does have a bunch of mana up, so I could just pass and do this at instant speed, and wow. Opponent's gonna scoop it up. So if they didn't have any interaction, I can sack Fabled Passage, get even a forest, turns into a swamp with Urborg, and then with the Chocobo I get double the Dread Presence trigger, so I can take out the Innkeeper, maybe draw a card, and then Gitrog Monster also draws off Fabled Passage going to the graveyard. We get 2 landfall triggers of Lotus Cobra, so I can maybe cast even more spells, and yeah, then we're in pretty good shape. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and we have a promising hand. Early ramp into Bolas' Citadel, that's what it's all about. Opponent with a portable hole. Alright, that's gonna slow us down already. Explorer's nice. Already facing an interesting decision what to do with a Fabled Passage. Probably still get a green source. So I'm more likely to play Explorer. With Dryad I can fix my colors anyway. Assuming we get to keep it in play. Alright, so Dryad into land versus Azusa. I guess Azusa has more upside with Explorer next turn, and if they do have removal, I might prefer hanging on to the Dryad for later. So opponent on a white human aggro deck. Not gonna give us a ton of time to set up. Dryad would have been the better blocker in this situation, admittedly. But now we get to see the payoff of having an Azusa. Mill a swamp. So I've got 3 extra line drops total. Can just spam Fabled Passage. And then at this point I guess I can just play the swamp, play Dryads. Next turn I get to Citadel. And can leave Fabled Passage uncracked for the time being. Even though I don't have many basics left to get, actually. I'll still play it. Alright. Pass a turn. I've got 9 lands in play to my opponent's 3. So if we can find Red Presence, we can turn all those lands into damage. Second Aspirant. So I'm not going to be able to soak up an attack. Well, I guess I can if they don't pump the Vanguard. Although maybe they didn't want us double blocking. So take 5. Alright, opponent's gonna scoop it up, understandably. But yeah, next turn with a Citadel, I'm pretty sure we can figure something out, because we all have a lot of control over our top decks with Mill from Explorer and the Fabled Passages shuffling my deck. So then we should be able to find something useful and pretty much win the game on the spot. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Our hand's a little slow to get going, but I do like where it's headed with Dryads and Dread Presence. So we'll give it a shot, ideally draw a mana elf for Cobra. Or hope our opponent's not off to a blazing start. Which is sometimes hard to come by in Pioneer. A lot of decks that can sort of present lethal by turn 3. But our opponent appears to be on a slower tokens deck, so yeah, we might have a chance. They may have lots of sorcery speed removal to deal with our early creatures, but the hope is that once we play Citadel, we can have a turn where we just win on the spot. Enduring Innocence can draw them cards. Go for Dryads. And then... yeah, I should probably still play the Swamp. If Dryad lives, then Fabled Passage also counts as a Swamp for Dread Presence, but it can always get a Swamp. Alright, opponent with Overlord making a pair of flyers, so no removal, that's good. Not taking any damage. And a land is excellent. So I could actually cast a Citadel already, although debating whether or not that's what I want to do. Because if I play Citadel, and I find another land on top, I'm stuck, and then they might have removal for Citadel. So I think I wait another turn, and for now get some value off Dread Presence. Into Fabled Passage, draw a card. Find a Gidrock monster. I probably have enough kind of value cards in hand that I can afford to just deal with the opponent's creatures for now. Forest still counts as swamp thanks to Dryad, so I get to deal 2 damage. And the Innocence turns into an enchantment anyway. So I'll deal with the flyers. Play this tapped. And pass a turn. Could have probably gotten away with attacking. But again, I'll just keep my life total as high as possible. That way Citadel is going to be more effective. Opponent had the Get Lost for Dread Presence, not too surprising. And now Caretaker's Talent for more card advantage. Alright, so I can wait one more turn on Citadel, develop with Traveling Chocobo and Lotus Cobra perhaps. Or I can go for it now. With 2 extra lands remaining, I think it's fine to go for it. Chocobo is excellent. And a Lotus Cobra. Alright. Let's go. So this makes 2 mana. And the Citadel on top I can just explore into the graveyard. Play another Cobra first, giving me more mana. So now it's just a matter of finding a Dread Presence. It is possible our opponent's got a Sweeper in hand. So we do have to be a little careful, but now let's just keep going. And I guess I could pay mana there with a Chocobo as opposed to choosing to pay life with a Citadel. Now there's a land on top, can explore, draw into it. And Azusa can let us go even further. Can we find a Dread Presence? We are starting to run out of life here. So I don't think I play Dryad, I think I just fetch. And then I get to mill twice with, or 3 times with Explorer. Make 1,000,000 mana. Yeah, I'm confident we can win the game this turn. Especially with a Gidrock monster and Fabled Passage drawing us more cards. So let's first play Fabled Passage to mill the Citadel. Don't need to draw it. Milled an Urborg, that's nice too. Gidrock also gives me an extra land drop. Alright, play Cobra, that's probably worth 2 life. Although now I need to be more conservative and save my life total for Dread Presence. Alright, so make a bunch more mana. Might also be timing out at some point if I'm not careful. Can play Urborg. Although we already had Dryad, so it wasn't really necessary. Gonna mill 1 at a time. In case I see Dread Presence, I can draw into it with Fabled Passage. Thanks to the Gidrock monster. So we draw Dread Presence. Get a bunch more triggers. I'm pretty low on cards in library, so you have to be mindful of that. So mill those. Draw land. Make a bunch more mana. So yeah, those 2 other copies of Dread Presence are hiding in the bottom of my deck. Alright, there's Dread Presence on top. Make some mana. Can resolve those. Play Dread Presence off the top. That's gonna cost me 4 life, that's fine. See another Dread Presence. Cast this from hand. Alright, and our opponent has seen enough. We had 30 plus mana floating here. We could play Dread Presence from hand. Fetch into the Dread Presence by sacking Fabled Passage. So I don't need to play a land first and mill with the Explorer. And then with triple Dread Presence in play, assuming I have 1 or 2 lands left in the deck, plus the ones in graveyard I get to replay, I probably have enough land drops left where I can just win the game. Dryad can also give me an extra land drop. There's another Chocobo I could cast. And then every land drop with triple Chocobo with every Dread Presence is going to be at least 8 damage. And then we also can't forget about sacking 10 permanents to the Citadel. So we definitely had things under control, but yeah, it was a pretty exciting turn here. So we got to see this Citadel combo deck in action, and while it's not going to be a very competitive choice, and I would not recommend it for the ranked ladder, if you just want to have some fun and cast a bunch of spells off the top with Citadel, sometimes even winning the game on the spot, this may be the deck for you. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.